All right, we are live. Finally.
Yes.
Did you ever think we was going to get on here, David?
I always had faith in you, Andy. Right?
Well,
Always had faith.
so give you a rundown. David's been having problems with his computer, with the camera, and then we switched gears, and now we got it going to this one, and then we had problems with this one, and then we was able to get it worked out.
January has been problematic. To give you guys an idea, I have got 3 videos that have stalled because of some reason other than normal run-of-the-mill situations. Right? I can't believe it. And I've had a computer failure, which had 2 of the videos on there, so I couldn't access them to put them on the other computer. Anyway, let's hope that this evening runs like clockwork.
Yeah, that's the plan. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So we do have people coming back in here. Thank y'all so much for enduring that whole debacle of technical stuff. But we've got a good bit of people in here. Colleen, New Guys Garage, John Wilburn, Doug
Hi,
Stern,
John.
Lynn Ness, Scott Holton. So what we wanted to do tonight is get on here and talk about our 2024 projects.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire, don't we?
Yeah, too many. Right.
Way too many.
You know, here's the problem with enthusiasm. Eventually, it will overwhelm you. And I have to keep reminding myself I'm not getting any younger. There was a time when I could juggle 29 balls in the air at once. Now I have a problem juggling 2. So, but let's talk about the Mission Impossible project, right? Because
we get comments all the time.
We have not forgotten that. But it's taken a slightly new turn.
Yes.
And it's not finalized yet. But here's what's happening. We have been offered by parts. We have been offered parts by companies that want to support the project so that it's more saleable at the end.
Right.
And these companies are willing to donate parts simply because it's for St. Jude's.
Right.
And here's the situation. We've changed our line of attack here slightly, so that although when we test the engine, it will be the sort of power you could get out of the engine on the lines that we originally proposed, i.e. as many stock parts. However, a lot of the parts that we're being offered aren't going to make any difference to the power, but they will make a lot of difference to whoever wins the engine will get as a final build. Now, they could put it all back to where it made, let's say, 375 horsepower, but when they get the engine, it could well be making 450 with an RPM limit, something like 8,000.
Yeah. So basically, here's where it's at from my standpoint. I was supposed to be heading this up, and no matter what we do with this project, there's going to be someone that's not happy with the direction that we're taking it. Whether it be we keep it exactly 100% stock parts, or if we go the other direction with good parts, good cylinder heads, something that will be the end user will actually want to put in a car and run it
and go racing
with it.
Now,
and so that's the thing.
Let me state one of those instances here, right? We've had a company, a very reputable company that I've worked with for 45 years.
Long time.
Yeah, long time. And it turns out that half their sales team is St. Jude's, how shall I say, sympathizers, fans, contributors, etc. Good for them. But they said, if I change to small block Chevy rods and small block Chevy pistons, we will get slightly more displacement, and the rods can be used straight out of the box, and they're not high dollar rods, right? So we've got that as an advantage. Now, these rods and pistons might give a fraction of a bit more horsepower.
Yeah.
But I would imagine 2 or 3, maybe 4 or 5 at the absolute most. So all that rod prep that I've showed you still stands, except those rods won't go into the engine now, right? So that means I haven't quite finished doing them all. What it means is that saved me hundreds of hours of work. Now, the block is going over for being bored shortly,
Yes.
isn't it?
So bring you up to speed to that. The machine work, Eric Hester of M&E Engines, same guy that did all of my machine work on mixed up balls, has donated his time and effort for doing all of the machine work necessary on Mission Impossible. And so that's a good aspect of it. So that's taken care of. But if you know me and David, let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
We don't build things that are in a box. We're outside of the box thinkers.
That's right. For the most part, we are not engine assemblers. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm using that term and, how shall I say, dismissing engine assemblers as not a skill. That is not right. That is not correct, rather. Right? Engine assemblers.
Actually, those details matter.
That they do, right? Because you've got far more opportunities to screw up an engine assembly than you would ever imagine. How do I know? Get on the internet and see how many times you get advice that will do nothing other than give you less than optimal results.
So that's pretty much where we're.
Shall I tell them about our kit motor deal?
Which one?
The one where we example builds.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a good article.
Now, you can think about this and comment on it whilst we're doing this here, right? So we're going to watch out for your comments on that screen there. Andy and I have decided that what we can do, we've been doing this a long time, a lot longer than we've been on the internet showing it off. Some of the engines that I did were successful engines 40 years ago. No photographs of them, just the spec.
Yeah.
So, and Andy's in the same boat here. You know, if we go back 20 years with Andy's stuff, he had no idea he was going to be on the internet.
No. Clueless.
So he might have test results.
Right.
No photographs or anything. So we thought, well, you know, this is information. This is going to waste.
Yeah.
You know, all this stuff has been dynoed. We've spent the time on it, and we have numbers.
Right.
And we have parts. So what we're going to do is about once a month, maybe we'll get 3 or 4 to get it going, but we are going to put an example build in, which is this part, this part, this part, this part. Here's power figures.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing fancy. You'll be able to look at it and say, oh, you know, that's just what I want.
Yeah.
And you know, we can't go through and price it all out. We're going to have to estimate it. So we will put in there whether it's a 1-star build, that's really low buck. A 2-star build, that's probably what will be the average interest. A 3-star build will be, it's quite a nice little bracket motor and it goes on the street pretty well. 4-star build, that's a weekend racer, right? 5-star build, hey, watch out, here we come.
Yeah.
Right? Now, one of the things we've decided here is since we've got to do this, and it takes time, and there may not be that many people watching it because they'll want to know, well, I wonder if they've got an engine for us here. We're going to make it so it's subscribers only. So if you're out there and you're not a subscriber, subscribe, because there's going to be programs you won't get.
Yeah, videos.
Yeah.
Not actually channel members, but you have to be a subscriber of the channel to watch the video.
Yeah.
Now let's make that clear.
Yeah. Andy's got some very interesting stuff on the mod motor.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's up to about somewhere up there in mod motor stuff. that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Why? Because he did all this before
YouTube.
Yeah. Well, it might not have been before, but before you
Yeah.
even thought about
Well, this was
YouTube.
in the early mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Late 2000s. So
Now, since I've known Andy, which is a little over 20 years.
it's about 20 years now. Yeah.
He's always been on mod motors, right? It's like he's a mod motor maniac. Oh, I like that.
Yeah. That's pretty much the world that I lived.
And now here's an interesting thing, right? I had no real interest in mod motors other than the fact that a lot of people started doing it. No. He's got me going on mod motors now. That Crown Vic project is not his project. It's our project.
Yeah.
Right? I'm see what he's doing. He's got me all wound up on it as well. So you guys with mod motors out there, this guy has got, there's a problem. He'd be better off if he had half the ideas he's got, because too many ideas can be as bad as not enough.
Yeah.
Getting to them. And I think we both have that
Yeah.
problem, don't we?
So let me clear up some things that's in the chat. Charlie, I know that you probably wanted to join the live chat with us. Since we're using the YouTube software, not StreamYard, that's not going to be possible this time. So I can't send you a link to make that happen. Sorry about that. So before we go any further, can you guys and gals hear us good before we keep rambling on? Put it in the comments, because
Let's see who's the fastest, right?
yeah. Let us know if you can hear us.
God, if you were in a gunfight, you'd all be dead by now.
Okay, good. They can hear us. So
Can I tell them about my little gunfight story?
no,
Well,
you
this
say
is
you
a
got
real
to-
quick one.
oh,
This is a real quick one.
okay.
Right. I have a friend in England who was the British fast draw champion. And unlike other competitors, he used a blank firing Colt Peacemaker. No modifications to it, except it was all well oiled and worked properly, right? And he used a regular holster. None of these ones that with the big thing, what do they call it? The hammer.
Yeah.
So you go boom like that. Let me tell you how fast he was. Party at his house. Now, when I visited England, he would always give a party to send me off, and next night I'd stay at his house, and next day run me to the airport. Well, he had this party on, and we were watching a Jimmy Stewart video.
Jimmy Stewart.
Did that does that sound like Jimmy Stewart? Anyway, the thing is the bad guy was Jimmy Stewart came up and pointed the gun at him. He's standing over him like this, and enough people had got to the party where they were watching this, because he had a big screen TV in a time when they were on. So I said, that's a fallacy, right? And he said, wait a minute. He said, that bad guy could have shot him if he was supposed to be fast on the draw. He said, we had a gun on him. He's, who thinks you're faster? And he pointed to this young guy who was a very successful Formula 4 driver. And I've forgotten his name. He said, you got fast reactions from what I hear, yeah? He said, yeah. So we got this gun out, Colt 45, cocked the hammer, right? And it's got a blank in it. Right, gives him the gun, and then he straps on his own gun, and he says, okay, point that gun at me, and when you see me do something you don't like, shoot me. And he's standing there still as anything. Boom! The guy never even had time to pull the trigger, and he'd already got the gun out. Now, talking about reactions, the next one of my So You Want to Be a Race Car Driver is going to talk about reaction times. What you see at the drag strip, at the lights, on your typical Christmas tree is not reaction. Now, a pro start is closer to a reaction, where it goes orange, green, and you have no idea within about 5 seconds when it's going to come up.
So tell everybody about where we're at and where we're going with the EcoBoost.
Well, here's the deal. Things are progressing
Quickly.
Nicely. First off, and this, I'm looking forward to this, Greg Gordon of Greg's Airplanes and Automobiles.
I hope he came back. He was in the live chat before.
Greg, are you here? Right? If you are, just slip something up there and say, "Hey guys, I'm here." Now, Greg's in the automobile section. He's got a business that mostly does European cars.
Yeah.
However, a few years ago, this is how I understand it at the moment. I guess I should have discussed it with Greg to find out the exact details. But
Yeah.
as I see it at the moment, Greg got a 2019 Mustang. I think when he got it, it was a new car. First off, from what I gather, it was just a nice choice to buy a car because it looked like good money, etc., etc. And
I don't think he really was planning on making it a performance car.
No.
Until he drove
and then he drove it and he thought, well, this is a nice car, which is what a lot of people find. They drive it and they say, there's more to a Mustang than meets the eye. You can't look at all those figures and just say, oh, it does this. It's got the Mustang personality, hasn't it? Right? Mustang personality. And I've seen a lot of testers say, well, that European car on paper is better. Mustang's so much more fun to drive. Right? It might have a live axle, not the new ones. It might have a live axle. It may have a push rod engine. It may well weigh 1.75 tons, etc., etc. How much fun is it? Way more than that more sophisticated Japanese, Italian, whatever. Now, here's what we're doing. We've had to slow down on spending on it, right? But the plan is we are going to progressively modify it. Right now, I'm working on a cold air box for it, which will really be a cold air box. And you'll see how we science it all the way through, don't we? We don't just say, well, that should work. We are going to, with an infrared camera, we're going to take pictures of it, etc., under tests, scientifically done tests.
Time consuming.
A versus B. And right now we're working on a cold air box, which is going to be so much better than anything you can buy. It will take you a couple of weekends to make. You will be able to make it for probably under $30 plus about, maybe 20 hours.
Yeah.
But once we've done it, once it's been done, the amount of heat that will get into the charge will be 2/3 or 3/5 of about this much.
Yeah.
Or maybe less.
The good news for all of the viewers out there that's into the polyquad, you're going to satisfy that itch.
Yeah. I mean, Andy, I can't pick it up. Do you want to go and get it and bring it in and just wave it in front of the camera and say, this is where.
Well, no, let's save a surprise for it.
Okay.
But polyquad is on the way.
On the way. Now, polyquad. Here's where we're at on the polyquad. I am doing a turbo for Greg. And the turbo is being, in quotes, ported. However, we've got this situation where if we didn't have a ported head to do it to, we'd have a ported turbo which didn't match a ported head, which would be bad. However, if we had a ported head, an unported head with a ported manifold, it wouldn't be a problem because the ported manifold would be bigger.
Right.
And now here's the deal with turbo manifolds. They like flow. They are not so critical on port velocity. Instead of having kinetic velocity, they've got pressure energy. Right. So the velocity bit tapers off in importance. So what I've got to do is I've got to port the exhaust side of my polyquad head first, right? And I haven't finished making the flow bench fixture for it yet. I'm nearly there. So I've had to port the head without any before figures. And I said this in that feature.
Sure did.
We've got plenty of 4-valve efficiency flow figures. We can use that to gauge
compare
success. So anyway, that's what I'm doing right now is I'm porting the exhaust and I'm making slow gains. Right now, we're looking at what I estimate to be about a 20 horsepower increase.
Yeah.
for the price of a few grinding wheels.
So,
Oh, I got to say about the material it's made of.
oh gosh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's
If
insane.
they had cast the hood, HMS hood, out of the exhaust material, the cast iron that they use on these turbos, it would be unsinkable, right? I mean, I got my saw blade on it, and I didn't make it a 16th of an inch way through that casing before.
And it killed it.
Killed it, yeah.
It killed it.
It killed it big time. We've now got a grinding wheel on it, cut-off saw.
Yeah, a death wheel.
Yeah, and
That's
you
what I call them.
believe it's going to take about 4 hours of grinding to cut through that wheel,
Yeah.
isn't it? I almost wish I hadn't started, but I need to make some points on the turbo housing. Andy and I were talking about this.
Yeah.
One of the best things that's ever happened to hot rodders who are looking for a big power increase, but not necessarily the ultimate, and they're looking for a power increase on a budget, the turbo exhaust housing with the inbuilt wastegate is probably the best thing that ever happened to turbo enthusiasts.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially those little turbos that's
Yeah.
in that car.
And
Or a little turbo.
yeah, and those turbos are great for a V8 because you can use two of them.
Yeah. So getting on to one of my projects. Now I know all of my Ford folks, they kind of got a little upset when I started doing Project Sleeper with this 408 small block Chevy. The one thing that I like doing on my channel is going from the build to the dyno to real world results. How you doing? Come on over. Come on over. Yeah, look at that.
I'm getting cold out there.
So the engine is almost finished. Waiting on the carburetor, which we're using a Quadrajet. It's a big Quadrajet that's been done by one of the leading Superstock guys, Dino, his name, and that's his guy's name. But anyways, once we get that, and I do the port work on the intake,
Which you're just about to start, aren't you?
yeah, and then
You went off to weld it last night.
Yep.
Did you get around to that?
Yeah, we got some of it done, so
Right.
that's a good thing. But then we will have it actually on the engine dyno over at Greg Finnegan's place, the Race Engine Challenge dyno.
Yep.
And looking forward to that. And then once that's finished, it will be into Chevelle, and you will see drag strip ETs from Still in Motion, because he always goes to Still in Motion with me. So it'll be kind of interesting to follow that whole process from engine build, dyno, to real world results.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is
just like Casper
I'm
was.
excited about this because this car is really a pretty car, right? For a car that's almost quite just use it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
the
he makes-
shifters on the column,
not-
no gauges in it.
It's not going to go out in the snow.
No,
Right.
it looks like
It'll
a
make you think twice about going out
coffee
in
and
a
cars type thing, you know?
Yeah. But if it's dry weather, it will be a beautiful ride.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It drives and rides like a brand new car. It
Yeah.
is that tight.
Yeah. Yep.
So next project.
It's what 45, 50 years old, going on 5
Oh, yeah.
days, right? That's about the way it is.
So-
When you see this car, it looks just like it's driven off the showroom floor. So,
All right. So getting back to Casper and the Crown Vic, most of you know about the Casper-matic transmission that is being done by Mr. John Cope, Cope's Racing Transmissions. Casper is going to be on the road quite a bit this year. We've got a lot of different racing engagements, starting out with Still in Motion, trying to make it to the Tailgate Showdown out in the Midwest. And then we've got Holly Fun Ford Fest. I think I said that right. And then topping it off is the AHRA No Name Nationals 2024. So everybody that's in this chat, I highly encourage you to go check out what the No Name Nationals is about. And that's where Casper is going to be this year. It's also going to be at a few other races.
yeah. And I'm going to try and make it.
Yeah.
I don't. Last year,
Hear that, John? Hear that, John?
Last year, I ended up with medical problems. I felt like a pile of doo-doo.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get David there this year. We'll just have to wait and see how it is. But time will tell. So to answer people, why do a live if you're not engaging your audience? We're going over our projects, and then towards the end, we will open it up for questions. That's how we do
Hang on,
things.
I just want to say hi to Dean Stevenson.
Yeah.
From New Zealand. Hey, I've spent quite a bit of time in New Zealand. What a great place. I mean, especially when you go to the South Island. And also, I've been to where they did all the shooting for the Hobbit. Right?
Okay.
When the Hobbit originally opens and you see Bilbo go and greet Gandalf, right there. And the bit where Gandalf is under the tree and disappears. I've got two of my friends' daughters there, right, and took pictures of them at that tree. So and I'm a big Hobbit fan. So
yeah,
that was great for me. But anyway, the hospitality of New Zealanders is top notch.
Top notch. So the Crown Vic, big news coming with the Crown Vic. As you've seen in my community post, I put a picture of the carbureted 4.6 on there. Been talking with David, got a lot of ideas, like he said. It's just a matter of making it practical. And so we're looking at doing some different things. I have teamed up with Carl Bauman of US Shift.
Is it break time yet?
No, it's not. We're just getting
time.
started. So, Carl Bauman of US Shift, which makes standalone transmission controllers.
Yeah.
Not going to give it away, but he is working with me on taking the Crown Vic to the next level, and it's going to be pretty awesome. You'll just have to stay tuned for that.
Yeah. And again, we need to tell people, now this is the important thing, because we need to try and satisfy the interest avenue of such a wide number of people. I mean, some people want to know how to build the most awesome race car. Other people want to have their street car just refined, a bit more performance and that. Do it on a budget, still retain all the streetability, the air conditioning and the cup holders, etc. The only way we're going to do that is we've got to go through it step by step. We can't just go build a race car, be much quicker.
It would.
We'd have it done in a year. Instead, we've got to just walk our way through so that we meet the needs of as many people as we can. And the number of people who want something that is intermediate or below far outweighs those that want something.
Yeah, that's basically 1% of probably our viewers, maybe 5%.
But for the race stuff.
Yeah. So that's where we're at on that. We also have.
Well, wait a minute. Cold air. We're still. Look, the EcoBoost has been sadly under-engineered from the performance industry in terms of cold air. Now, it sounds like I'm pointing the finger there. They have had to do this in a cost-efficient fashion that does not include making the thing cost a lot of money. The way we're going to do ours, it's very effective. You can do it, but it's labor intensive. You have to pay a fortune to get, say, Steeda or any of the others to do a cold air system like this. However, you are not in a position to do all your plastic molding to make what they do, but you can take the stock one, and I'm going to show you how to upgrade the entire thing so that it's almost like a refrigerator in there, right? The amount of heat that will get through, well, this is to be tested, but I'm going to estimate that only 1/10 of the amount of heat will get through from the engine compartment into the intake air. 1/10. So in other words, it is 10 times better than what you can buy.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got something to look forward to there. And also, another thing, I think we were looking at this together. The number of people who have taken a K&N air filter and said, well, you know, it might be okay for racing, but it doesn't filter. Look at all the holes in it. Big mistake. Because they've made the assumption that that K&N works exactly like any other filter. It's not. The K&N is unique and its copies. That does not include the S&B filter, because that, although it looks like a K&N, has nothing in relation to a K&N in terms of its function.
Just other than the looks.
It doesn't flow and it doesn't filter. Now then, what we're going to do is we're going to show you why those holes actually need to be there to accomplish the range of things that a K&N needs to have. After we tell you how it works, it'll all seem normal.
Right.
Yeah. So that's another thing there. What else have we got in? Let's look at some of your projects, because
well, so talked about the small block Chevy, talked about Casper, talked about the Crown Vic, the 4.6 in the Crown Vic.
Oh yeah, the heads.
The heads. So this is basically going to get done in like 2 different stages, because the Crown Vic is my daily driver. So the first step is we're going to put just the heads, cams, and intake onto the engine, the short block that's in the car. And the reason why I'm doing that is so that it'll limit me, it'll pace me.
Yeah. The
short block is actually over at Micah's that we're going to be building. And I'm going to do a budget built short block that's going to use the Coyote Boss 302 rods with good, probably DSS forged pistons. Just something really good that'll make
not outside your average budget.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely down
the fact that you can use stock Coyote rods, keep the stock cast iron crankshaft, and then you have a bottom end that's capable of 700 wheel horsepower and living there.
As much as that?
Yeah.
On the stock cast iron crank?
Yes.
Wow.
I talked with Tom Lee about that.
Okay, guys, this is living proof that Andy and I have a back and forth on information. I didn't know the crank would take that much power. I really expected him to say something like 450 to 500 horsepower.
Yeah.
700 horsepower. That's a freaking race motor.
When we ran Performance Street, for 3 seasons, we kept the cast iron crankshaft in it.
And you were running what for the quarter mile?
9s. So there you go. And then we finally, it never broke. We just switched it out to the forged Kellogg crank, the Cobra crank, just as a peace of mind thing. It never did break.
Yeah. You know, modern cast cranks.
It's not the same material.
It's not like it was 50, 75 years ago. You know, Ford Motor Company pioneered the way to make cast iron cranks. Back when the Model T came out. And the process that they perfected was not used by a lot of the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I don't know. I wasn't around then.
Well, no. And I wasn't born. I was launched. Actually, no, I'm telling a lie. Secret. Don't tell anyone. I was born at a very early age.
You hear that? So I think that pretty much wraps up the project. So you want to get into some questions? Let's talk to the folks.
Let's quick deal here. Everybody who's got a 4-valve engine that they want to modify the heads off and they want to know how to do polyquad, just punch in there 3 asterisks. And I'm going to look at that. And if I see more than 6 or 7, I'm going to give you more details on what we're doing with the polyquad, because it's not just, oh, here's how you modify a polyquad head.
No, there's a lot to it.
We're going through I know we're doing it on the EcoBoost because it's a 4-valve turbocharged head. What we're going to do here is going to apply to every 4-valve cylinder head.
Look, there they come. Hey, Greg's in here.
Hi, Greg.
We were talking about you a while ago. I don't know if you were in here. So yeah, they want to hear about the polyquad.
Oh my goodness,
They're coming.
Okay, right, okay. Here we go. Now, one of the problems with doing a polyquad head, if you are an at-home head porter, the porting for it isn't difficult to do. Unlike for 2-valve heads of earlier design, the polyquad head on a late model 4-valve cylinder head is not all about removing vast chunks of difficult to move metal. But the problem my original one did, where the only goal was cost no object race setup, is it was expensive as hell in terms of hardware. What I'm going to do here is take the same approach that we're taking to all of our tuning. Entry level that you can do at home. In other words, a pseudo polyquad.
Yeah.
Then a proper polyquad.
Yeah.
So the first one, you can use all the stock parts.
Which is a big deal.
Yes, because if you've got to buy even 8 valves of different size to what's in there, that's still going to cost a pretty big $1.
Yeah.
$500. And also you're going to have to get some machining done. And so that even if you do all the porting yourself, you could still be into these polyquad heads that you're doing at home for over $1,000.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to do some here that, other than grinding some valve seats, the cost is zero.
Yeah.
Except all you need is grinding, cutters. Right? So that's how
pretty self-explanatory.
That's the same as we're doing the 4.6.
Yeah.
And the heads, we're going to show the head done in a regular porting that you can do at home. And I'll tell you now, the porting on them is absolutely straightforward, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Only gets complicated when you decide it's going to get complicated because you want to extract the
every last horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying, 90% of the effort to get just 10% power.
Yeah. Yep.
10% effort to get 90% of the power. So
did I follow that? No,
it probably didn't make sense. But let's see here. What else is on the plate? I think that's probably it. Let's get to some questions.
No, we haven't mentioned the 100-mile per gallon.
No, we have not.
Let me now. Andy and I have been working on this. And basically, what's happened is I have come to the realization that I've got some incredible evidence. Does the 100-mile per gallon carburetor exist? Does it not exist? Now, we can't prove that it doesn't exist. You can't prove a negative, right? But if we may have evidence to prove that it's unlikely that we have that. And we may have evidence to prove that it's been done. Has it been bought out by the big gas companies? Well,
I don't know.
Well, no, it's not quite true.
Well, we'll get into all that.
Yeah, it's not. But what we do have to augment the argument about the 100-mile per gallon carburetor is some absolutely undisputable concrete facts
that you won't get anywhere else.
Won't get anywhere else. Absolute concrete facts. Not third party by virtue of so-and-so said that, well, they suspected this. No, this is concrete facts, right? Documented evidence from the time that this was attempted. Did they do it? Did they not? That's what we're going to discuss.
Yeah.
Right? This is new evidence you've never read before. But you can't read about it unless you subscribe.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those subscriber.
And we got to fit it all.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Don't expect it tomorrow because this all came up. We've planned our stuff right through to at least the mid-year.
The thing about it is, the one thing that I looked at the end of last year is looking where I fell short on my channel on things, where David's channel fell short on follow through, like the Mission Impossible. There's a lot of moving parts on that deal, which I still got to get with Tony and see if he still wants to be involved with the version that we're doing. He may or may not.
Right. Well,
but that's neither here nor there.
We'll see the project through.
Yeah,
right?
We're going to see it through, and we're going to see just exactly what a 318 can do. And so that's that. Let's get to talking to the viewers. Right now we have over 200 people on here.
That's good.
Yeah.
Guys, don't make it too lengthy because we're only looking at a small screen here.
I'll pick the questions.
Yeah.
Let me pick the questions.
So, okay, Andy, it's your show there. You take over.
Well, let's see if my eyes will let me do it. Man, I hate getting old.
Well, it's not that. We're looking at a small screen.
The first one,
a giant one.
The first one, Flow Bench Drama. Quarter-mile ET goals for the EcoBoost Mustang. So what would you be satisfied in seeing the EcoBoost run?
Remember, the EcoBoost is not a drag racer. It's not a road racer. It is supposedly going to target being a fast track day car, which is totally streetable. Now, when I say a fast track day car, I don't want it to be very far behind a race prepped car, right?
On the road race course.
On a road race course.
Yeah.
So on the drag strip, we are not going to use drag race suspension, right? We will go out there with eventually somewhere around 500 rear wheel horsepower on the current engine. If the project goes on long enough, I'm hoping to team up with Dave Mountain, my old buddy Dave Mountain, at Mountain Racing in Torrance. They've got stuff for this that you haven't heard of yet.
Yeah. He's done a lot of development.
And we are going to be using a block that will take 1,000 horsepower. Now, 1,000 horsepower from the EcoBoost. Look, I've done that Mitsubishi, which made 1,172 rear wheel horsepower on slicks on the dyno in Florida on a stinking hot, humid day.
Yeah.
Uncorrected.
And there's already been folks that's been 8 seconds in the quarter mile on an EcoBoost.
Well, yeah, but
they're
on a road course and they're going to be sunk.
It's not the same.
We are putting big brakes on this. We are lightening it. That's one of the things we have to press home on it.
Mm-hmm.
The worst enemy for track time is weight.
Yeah. All right. Next
question. It makes
question.
everything worse. Now, okay.
Let's see here.
What are your thoughts on ignition timing guns? Does a cheap one work good, or do they generally have a big measurement error? You know what?
Timing lights.
Yeah, timing lights. That's a good question.
I've never.
Timing lights is not something that in your lifetime you buy dozens of, right? I think I've still got the timing light that I bought back in 2000. And the timing light I had before that was a cheap one. And the reason it stopped working was I drove over it. Right? Piece of garbage. It didn't stand.
I've done that.
3,500 pounds of car going over it.
Yeah.
So it's you guys as a group are better able to tell us.
That would actually be good to get like a batch, a batch of timing lights and put them on an engine to see if you see any differences.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen that done.
I want you to, talking about timing, I want you to give them a brief rundown on, now you've been using it for a while, on your programmable distributor.
So my progression ignition distributor, I absolutely love that. If anyone in this chat we have a policy. If a product is really good, we promote the heck out of it. If it's bad, we expose it. For me, this distributor is a game changer because you set the timing one time, you set the base timing where it matches up with what the app says on your phone, and then from there you can create custom timing curves without even having to get out of your seat. You can actually do it on the fly while you're driving down the road. So if you're interested in what we're talking about here, you can go to my channel, Unity Motorsports Garage, and watch the videos I have on that. So let's go to another question. Mark Elrod, is it possible to run solid roller lifters on hydraulic roller camshaft? And can an externally balanced crank be internally balanced? Which one do you want to take? The top one or the bottom one? You take the cam one.
Yes.
And yes.
Very often, you can test how good the hydraulic lifters are by very carefully lashing the solid rollers, because essentially all lifters have a certain amount of give. A solid roller is an extremely tight hydraulic one. It's thousands, if not millions of times stiffer. Limit to a travel of about 0.2 of a thou. Now, if you lash that, and it has to be done hot.
Yeah.
If you lash that at about 10 thousandths, you can check to see what your cam is capable of if you have perfect hydraulic lifters. It'll be noisy.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily destroy anything.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't want to use it on the road.
And you definitely don't want to go any looser than that, because you get off of the ramp of the profile, which can be bad.
Yeah.
For harmonics and things.
And what was the other one?
Brian, it says timing light doesn't matter because the engine wants what it wants. Yeah, that just tells you what you're seeing.
Yeah.
The power is going to be made where it wants to be made at. So, Woody 028, what's more important, fuel distribution or plenum volume on a stroker motor, single plane versus dual plane?
That's a bit of an open question, isn't it? What is
actually the plenum volume helps you get better fuel distribution.
What is the end usage?
Right.
If it's, and what engine is it? Let me say something here about our experience with good dual planes, right?
Yeah.
If you've got a good dual plane, if you're going to build a street motor, that's what you want to use. For instance, the Edelbrock small block Ford,
the
RPM air gap
killer manifold
is it is. It is what it gains at the bottom end is so much more worthwhile than what it loses at the top. It drives nicely. I mean, and I'm in the process of modifying one. Let me make a point here, Andy. See if you agree with this.
Yeah.
If you've got a good two-plane manifold, the thing is it really makes a nice drive. You get power, torque low down, you get top end horsepower, etc. But I can tell you for a certainty that the manifolds out there are done more for installational use than they are for performance. I am in the process of modifying a good two-plane Ford manifold to show that its potential is far from plumbed. If Edelbrock was to say to me, you can have one wish, what manifolds would you like us to improve on? And I say, could you design a two-plane where power was the total goal and it had to be no more than an inch taller than it is now?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, they really put their heart and soul into it. They could almost match
a really good
single plane manifold.
Yeah.
But they'd get all that low end torque. Now, as far as fuel distribution, a two-plane manifold can be a nightmare, right? Absolute nightmare. I know David McCoy and I, when we were running that Malibu, we had jetting all over the place to try and even it up. and there's two cylinders, and for the life of me, I can't remember which they are. Two cylinders that, if you go up in the jet, it favors one cylinder and the other one loses it. You go down in the jet, it reverses it. You cannot get both of them right at the same time. So you have to just jet for the best.
You know what's funny is, like, in my testing, I have found that even though the distribution may not be as precise as EFI, it really doesn't matter. It will, to a certain degree, the carburetor is still going to make more power because of the charge cooling. But let me put it to you this way. There's something that I want to put out there. If you go put an oxygen sensor in your header collector on both sides, that's only telling you that much of the story, because you can have 3 cylinders running really rich and having one cylinder that's extremely lean, and then it will average out and tell you what you think is good.
Yeah.
I proved that when I dynoed mixed up Bosch. You can go back and look at those dyno videos, had perfect air fuel ratio in the collector, but in the header primary tubes themselves, completely different.
Adding to that, I got to tell you this, there's nothing more hilarious than watching this guy frustrated about fuel distribution.
Right. It just tears me up.
He hasn't actually got short hair. That's from tearing it out, right? So now we are moving into a new arena here. Tonight, I was hoping we'd have our, in quotes, pro stock engine builder down here, because we are going to be using his dyno facility, right? In effect, Andy and I are going to be joining his research team. Now, I know a couple of the guys there from way back. They've just been moved around. They've ended up at this guy's place, right?
And it's just right up the road from us.
Yeah.
In Denver.
Guess what? They've just bought themselves a high-end in-cylinder pressure measuring deal. We have got use of it. We have been promised use of the dyno
anytime that they're not
using it, which means that we probably have got, could be as much as 20 hours a week, isn't it?
Well, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
But here's the point. The in-cylinder pressure measuring will allow us to
do things that we haven't been able to do.
In-cylinder pressure measuring is a bigger step forward than the advent of the flow bench. I'm going to put this simply. This is what I tell people when they say, is an in-cylinder pressure measuring deal worth it? Hell yes, it is. It gives you
live data.
It gives you the ability in a graphical form to look into the cylinder to see what's going on, not guess it. I've used in-cylinder pressure measuring now. My first time I used it was at Superflow back in like 1977. Boy, I tell you what, the system they had then compare with what they got now. But here's the point. One of the things that you can do with it is look at the pressure measuring in the exhaust, cylinder, and intake, and you can tune the exhaust very easily to get the right length for each cylinder. I'll tell you this now. There are lots of equations which tell you the exhaust system has to be this length and this diameter. Ignore it. Because all that is a piece of guesstimation based on what they think is going on. Unfortunately, what most engine builders think is going on isn't. Right? It just isn't going on at all. Header design is not complicated. It's freakishly complicated.
Yeah.
And an in-cylinder pressure measuring gauge suddenly turns it from needing an IQ of 199.8 down to an IQ of 110. Seriously. I wouldn't be able to design exhaust systems as good as I could if it went for in-cylinder pressure measurements. I'm down to 110 mark here.
Yeah.
Right. So the fact that we now have, I don't know, $50,000 piece of equipment to use, we've been trying to buy one for how long?
A long time.
We just never seem to have the money to buy.
That's a lot of money.
TFX has got one.
Yeah.
Right. That you can get for $12,000. And it is the best tool for tuning a turbo motor. And you can do it in the vehicle.
That's the cool part.
That's the cool part. Oh, and the one we're going to use also can be, you can take it off the dyno and put it in the vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you want your drag race EcoBoost or anything else to go as fast as it possibly can, you owe it to yourself to get on a dyno that has in-cylinder pressure measuring. Anyone who's got it, there's companies out there that have got them, and you hire the guy and his equipment to dyno test your car out on the track or street or wherever, but not on a dyno. And the beauty about in-cylinder pressure measuring is it allows you to actually physically measure the power that's developed in the cylinders. Forget all the friction and all that, because that's a separate issue, right? You can say this cylinder is producing this much horsepower, this one's producing this much, and go right through it. So it really is the tool for a master engine builder.
Yeah. So I seen a question in here that was asking me if I'm actually kin to the Wood brothers of NASCAR fame. And the answer to that is yes. They are somehow related. It's of course on my dad's side, but I think they're like second or third cousins. So, you know, yes, I'm related to them. Colleen's wanting me to model my new shirt. So this is,
where's Colleen?
Colleen is right here. Well, maybe I'm gonna mess it up.
Was that Darren Morgan down there?
I don't know. I'm gonna mess it. See right there. Yeah. So I'm gonna show you the Tunnel Ram Mafia shirt. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah. Okay. What you guys can't see is this is printed like it's on. The quality of the printing is almost as good as if this was on a Hot Rod magazine page on expensive glossy paper. When I first saw this, I thought this is in a league of its own. The detail on it is unbelievable. See if you can get up closer, Andy. Put your back against here.
Let's see here. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
It is. The pixels on this are not sufficient to show the full detail of that. When I first saw it, I thought this is in a league of its own.
Yeah.
I have never seen shirt print. I'm not an expert in it. I've never seen t-shirt printing as good as this. Greg Gordon, if you want any t-shirt printing, this might be the company to go to, because you only want high quality stuff.
And that's the thing.
That's who you are.
I've dabbled with, we can talk about our merch.
Yeah.
So the guy that I'm using is Tony Ross of Tony's Hot Rods Garage. I met him through John Wilburn, and he came to the No Name Nationals. I met him at the first one in 2022, but he has a side company called Gunslinger Graphics, and he has taken over doing my merch for my channel. In doing so, I've got David on board with him, so we've got to come up with some cool logos for you and cool sayings to get you some shirts.
And this guy is continual inspiration, right? The first one he said, now, how about this for a DV quote? Actually, it's a Roger Helgeson quote, but you know, I've publicized it. I don't have an opinion, I have a dyno.
That's right.
And I thought to myself, why didn't I think of that?
So the shed, you can go to shop.unitymotorsportsgarage.com and it will take you to the store where you can buy the Tunnel Ram Mafia shirt. I wish I could put his Gunslinger Graphics link up in here, but I'm not going to do that while I'm on the live chat. So, let's see here. He does killer work. So if I'm going to sell a shirt that's going to have my name attached to it, it has to be top quality. That's the only thing I will accept. So let's look for.
Is this a company that you got?
Yes, John posted it there.
Right, I can see that John posted it. Yeah,
John, you can't put the link in there, can you?
come on, answer. What's keeping you? You'd already been
Steven's
shot
got
dead in a
his
gunfight.
Tunnel Ram Mafia shirt ordered. Awesome. So, what other cool things? Yeah, literally, that dyno facility is 15 minutes from both of us. Yeah, you don't have a mod wrench. We'll take care of that after this. But let's see here. Any other good questions? And by the way, John Wilburn got shirt number 1, and I've got shirt number 2. He got his shirt. He ordered them before I even knew that I could order it. Let's see here. Look back. Trying to get caught up here. So one of the things that I want to talk to you is the 128 formula. Man, I get questions all the time.
Yep.
And a lot of people, they think that that's the end all.
It's not universal.
That is that big of a portion of his master cam profile program. And it's not universal. I mean, you can get in the ballpark.
Yes.
On different
thing
engines.
is different engines require different constants.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, I bet it won't come as one bit of a surprise when you think that the gas dynamics of a flathead Ford engine are different to a Formula One engine, right? Why would the constant for the flathead be the same as for a Formula One? They have totally different breathing characteristics. Now, when I came up with that 128 formula, it was a simplification of what my more complex did. And I posted it solely for people to use to see if in the most common circumstance, that's a 10.5 to 1 compression,
on a small block Chevy.
On a small block Chevy, that their cam was right, because we typically have commonly used 327, 350, 383, and 406, right? A cam for a 327 is way off optimal for a 406, but the cam companies won't tell you that. So I put the 128 formula out there, which came in for a far much more ragging than it ever should have done.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In fact, some people were indecently rude over it and saying, yeah, what do you think you're doing? I'm trying to guide the average guy who has no clue into having at least a half-ass clue.
Yeah, in the ballpark.
I'm being blamed for that? Right. I think some people just want to criticize for the sake of being critical because it makes them look like they know more than I do.
Yeah.
They may do, but that's not the way to show it. Right? I would much rather have somebody politely say, this is this. And if I thought there's any merit to it, let's talk about it. Because
that's how we get smarter.
Right. I remember way back when I was doing my factory racing British Touring Car Championship, I had an 11-year-old kid. I was doing a job on the car, and he said, why don't you do it like that? And his dad says, can you leave Mr. Vizard alone? He knows what he's doing. And I stopped and I thought about what this kid said, and I thought, that's a better idea than I've got. Did I think myself belittled by this kid? Hell no. He just made my race car faster. That was the end goal. I'm going back to 1974. I gave him a £5 note and I said, take your mom and dad out for dinner. Now, £5 back then would have bought mom, dad, and him a steak dinner in a pretty decent restaurant.
Yeah.
So I am not blinkered by my own ideas. The reason I get so many ideas is because I spend a lot of time listening.
Yeah.
Right, Andy?
That's exactly right.
I mean, I got to tell you, this guy here has got to be close to the perfect partner. You know why? He's inspirational.
We go back and forth quite a bit.
We do, right? Neither of us is wrong. We just have a different opinion and we try to home in on it. And if anybody wanted to join in a, what's the word I'm looking for here, Andy? A congenial fashion instead of bad mouthing.
Yeah.
I'm willing to listen. I want my car to go as fast as possible. I want to know. This annoys me. Vizard thinks he knows it all. Andy, do I think I know it all?
No.
Right? Why would I spend so much time
No.
doing research if I knew it all?
That's right. You would be up on a mountain somewhere just shouting out commands.
Yeah. No, I don't know it all. But I tell you what, I have friends and contacts in the industry. Look, I've been doing this since I was 15. So we got a 65-year deal here. I have built up probably better than 100 people who are absolutely brilliant at what they do. I take a lot of notice of them.
Yeah.
Where I've scored over you guys is my lifestyle has allowed me to focus on people who are brilliant. Why? So that I can learn from them.
Yeah.
So this business about, well, Vizard thinks he knows it all. Guys, you're full of BS.
Yeah. What's happened with me is the more I learn in this process, the more I
know we don't know.
yeah, the more I realize how much I don't know. And that's
Yeah.
the truth. If I don't know it, I will tell you that. There was one question on here, BNR. How tight of an LSA can be used with modern EFI from Holly Terminator or second generation Sniper Stealth? Is it possible to say 102 to 108? Well, first of all, it doesn't understand,
Yeah.
it doesn't know what LSA it is. It sees overlap and it sees.
Yeah. Look, here is our goal with the camshaft. We need to inhale the maximum amount of air and we need to make the trapping efficiency as high as possible. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
it.
all you've got to do.
That's it.
Right. And the problem is that 120 years of designing camshafts, nobody seems to have a handle on it except us.
Yeah.
Right. Now that sounds like I'm boasting there. Well, I am. Right.
He is.
What I can do with detailing cam events outdoes Ford Motor Company, Chrysler, and GM. If it didn't, I'd be out of a job. Now, here's something else I need you guys to consider, right? If you're a Formula One driver, you're only in business so long as you can stay right at the top. And most Formula One drivers get to an age where they can't stay there. They've had enough, so they retire.
Mm-hmm.
I started in this business 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm still top of it now. If you try to find somebody who is writing as much as I do, who is passing on information like I do, who does university lectures like I do, that has been doing it for as long as I have and stayed at the top of the pile, let me tell you something. You won't find anyone.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because this isn't work for me or Andy.
Yeah.
Andy would love to suddenly stop working
full-time job and do this.
Full-time job and do this. Right? Boy, we would have fun, wouldn't we?
Oh, we would.
we do. And
we do.
But here's the thing. Since 1959, I've got up in the morning, looked in the mirror, and I say, today I do exactly as I want again.
Yep.
And that's how it's been for the last 60 years.
Yeah. You know, going back to prove that point, you know, you look at Pro Mod, you look at Pro Stock, and the camshafts that's used in those engines, and they use fuel injection. So fuel injection can be tuned for a ton of overlap. So, you know, a lot of people think, well, a Pro Stock engine might run a 114 to 116 LSA. That's what I need. No, that's not what you need.
You don't have a Pro Stock motor.
You don't have a Pro Stock motor.
Right. A Pro Stock motor runs those wide lobe centerline angles because it's got a much bigger valve per cubic inch than your engine has, and B, it has a much higher compression. The compression for every
16 to
point
1.
you go up, or every about 1.5 points you go up, means you have to spread the lobe centerline angle by about 1 degree for optimum. Now, here's the good news. The higher the compression, and this is a justification for compression, the higher the compression ratio goes, the less fussy the cam lobe centerline angle becomes for maximum power.
You have more of a leeway.
Years ago, I was working with one well-known
Low
Pro Stock
compression
engine builder, and to prove the point, we ran 4 lobe centerline angle cams through the engine, starting off at about 114, and we went up to about 118, 1 degree increments. And you know, the difference between a 114 and a 117 wouldn't have accounted for more than about 0.02 of a second on the drag strip.
Yeah, not much.
There was only in 1400 horsepower, there was only between those 3 cams 8-9 horsepower,
And that's minimal.
That's 2/3 to 3/5 of almost nothing.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing: just because you deliver the fuel with fuel injection doesn't mean that the optimum lobe centerline angle change.
No.
Consider this: when we design a camshaft, we are designing it to A, breathe as well as it can, B, trap as much air as it can, right? It's no good breathing good and then letting it all go out the exhaust. It's no good trapping it in the cylinder if you didn't get much in to start with, right? So technically, the engine should not know how the fuel is being delivered, assuming that it's in the ports. It might know how it's being delivered if it's in the cylinder, direct fuel injection.
You know, one point I would like to make is back in the 1960s, when there were no aftermarket cylinder heads, everyone had to run factory iron. You had to run crazy amounts of duration and overlap to get the engine RPM.
Yeah.
And what you end up having is, as the cylinder becomes more efficient, you don't need as much shaft and overlap to obtain the same performance as what you used to. So that's a big deal. And I think John and Shane Polito talked about that a little bit last week on their live chat. But Mike Schmidt gave you $20. Thank you so much. I know David will put that to good use.
Michael, $20. We costed out what our projects are the basic price of our projects this year. $50,000.
It's crazy.
And remember, what pays the bills are subscriptions and guys like Michael Schmidt here.
And viewers.
Right. Sure, I've got money to spend on some of that, but 50 grand's worth, that's the research. That's not including running our car. We got 2 engines that we've costed out without labor, 50 grand.
And if we build a flat plane crank engine, it's going to be even more than that.
Well, fortunately, we've got about 12 grand's worth of stuff for it. So that is we only need about another 13 grand's for it. Quick point here.
Does wider LSA make more or less cylinder pressure? Mike, wider LSA will kill cylinder pressure.
Yeah. Now, the point is this. You're coming at it from the wrong angle.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just up and say, does wider lobe centerline make more? Wider than what? You have an optimum lobe centerline angle, which gives you the best power band, mostly in the area where you race,
Yeah.
right? Anything different from that is not optimum anywhere. It
Yeah.
drops cylinder pressure, it drops breathing efficiency. Nothing is good. There's only one load centerline angle that you should have in your engine. That's the right one.
Yeah.
It's not an adjustable feature.
Right.
The cam companies say, well, that's a bit of a tight load centerline angle for a street motor. That phrase tells you right there, they have no idea what they're talking about.
Let's see here. So basically, where we come from on the school of picking camshafts is determine an amount of overlap first. You have to know overlap, and then from that,
shall we put them out their misery, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully, before I depart this world and join the big racetrack in the sky, right? And I know I'm going to heaven because I know Jesus wants me to be on his crew.
Yeah.
Right. So before that happens, I want to get out a version of my cam selection program. Right now, let me tell you what it does and why I need to spend less time working and more time on research and development and writing programs. Here's the thing, and this is a project that we're doing. That Andy and I are doing with Stan Weiss, right? I do the math, Stan and Andy. Stan does the layout, Andy pulls holes in it. Right now, the reason that Andy's good at pulling holes and stuff is because he is an avid user and wants to get things right. Here's an opportunity to get things right first time. Now, my CAM program, you start off with what you think you want to build, and the program designs a cam for you. But in so doing, it also looks at all the weak points of the problem of the motor spec you've given it, and it says, but you'd be better off doing this, and you should change this to that, right? So at the end of the day, not only will it pick the cam, it will pick which heads are best to run with it. It will pick the crankshaft,
all of it.
It will pick the rods, the pistons. It'll do everything pretty much from what carburetor you run to what spark plugs you run. That's a cam selection program. In other words, you could have a 10-year-old kid spec out
an entire
engine. And this is a good thing. If he gave it to an engine builder to build, that engine would be dominating at racetracks. So the program removes any chance of you making a mistake.
Yep.
Now that's gonna be, if I get to that, it'll be late in the year, because let me tell you, it is not easy.
No,
now
it's
here's
not.
the other thing that is a lot easier. Stan and I have decided, well, I say Stan and I, no. Stan made a suggestion. His suggestion was, and he called me up, this is a couple of weeks ago now, he says, do you think we should let subscribers have a free trial copy of the Flowbench program for 20 days before it expires? And I said, hell yes, Stan, that sounds like a good idea. Because what will happen is they'll find, if they're into the business of doing cylinder heads, they're going to be better with it than without.
That's pretty awesome.
Right, now, this program is, if you want a permanent version, it's going to be what, $125?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Now, what does it tell you? It's the only program out there that will tell you where you're not making good. Is the port too big? It flows well, but is it too big? Is the velocity too low? Should we put in a bigger intake valve and reduce the size of the exhaust valve, or should we do that the other way around? I mean, here's one. I keep getting questions from people say, what's the correct intake to exhaust ratio? I mean, Smokey says it's 0.75. Well, Smokey never got to finish that statement. Now, I knew Smokey quite well. I'm still regretful to this day that I didn't spend more time with the guy, right? And you guys who didn't know him can probably not appreciate this statement. What his public persona was and what his private persona was were not the two same things.
Right.
Right. This guy was something else. Right. That gruff, rough exterior, carried him through the race community, because if you're not rough and tough, you don't make it.
Right.
Right.
Hey, you got a super chat from Cobalt 512, $5. Thank you. It says Billy Godbold has a new book out on valve trains and cams. Just FYI. By the way, do you cover exhaust valve seats in any of the book videos or books?
Yes. My cylinder head book.
Well,
I think I gave my last copy away, which is what I'm always doing. Oh,
Yeah.
have this.
Yeah, have
So
this. He
I
does.
have-
Every time someone comes over here, he's like, here, take
Have a
this.
book. Right. And
Or
I
take
signed
it.
it for them. But yes, it does. Now, the thing is I'm waiting for a copy of Billy's book to do a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a
Review. And now I've known Billy for,
long time.
yeah, he was a kid when I first knew him. Mind you, I wasn't as old either. Mike Mathis, what sort of granularity time wise does good in cylinder pressure set? Oh, what? Yes, you mean the data acquisition speed? Look, it keeps going up. When I first used an in-cylinder pressure measuring deal, it was I think it was about 60 data points per engine revolution. Right now, it's almost like it's continuous. Right, the data points are so close together. Like, correct anyone out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall in the back of my mind that it takes data about every 10th of a degree.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got 3,600 points per revolution. That gives you a pretty good curve.
So
what's this? Nuke exploder. I saw your series on people doing stuff. Very awesome content. Do you have any experience in the older 2.31 turbo? Yes, I do. One
have
cylinder
a whole
head.
Yeah.
I did one cylinder head. Now and tell you why I remember this. I cut the head for the guy, and he came over and picked it up. And a couple of weeks later, he was in, and he said, "Did you measure the cylinder volume, the combustion chamber volume on these to get them all the same?" I said, "No." He says, "Good Lord, I can't believe it." He says, "I cannot detect the difference between one cylinder and another." And I said to him, "I've been doing this for 25 years now." That was 25 years ago. No, more than that.
Oh, one thing I do want to point out, do y'all remember the big block Ford heads that I did a video series on? Well, that turned into a whole, what was supposed to have been a simple bowl job, that turned into pretty much like an old thing.
That's over enthusiasm on my part.
Yeah. So
I don't know. The older ones of you may remember this, but you'll have to be somewhere around my age. How many of you remember the TV Western show Paladin? Half gun will travel. Half grinder will port.
That's right. That's pretty much him. It's like, well, we can do this and we can do that, but you're going to be seeing the results of those big block Ford heads because Jason is getting him put on his engine this week, and hopefully we will be taking that truck to the track here.
Yeah. Oh,
as soon as it
trying
warms
to
up.
talk Jason into joining our team.
Oh,
right?
he's on board.
He's ready to go. That's good.
On board.
And I'm looking forward to this because he has a knack for making stuff work.
He does.
That's our kind of guy, isn't it, Andy?
They don't call him the boss man for nothing.
Right. And the point is this: he's not loaded with money. He's got enough money to have this
He's got
hobby, right? Which is not cheap, but the way he does it, he's an economy guy, but he thinks it out before he goes through it.
Yeah.
And this is just what we want. He's a prime example of somebody we would like to have on our team. So what we're going to do here, or at least this is a provisional plan, we are going to find out where he wants to go, assuming that his budget wasn't spaced out over 10 years,
Yeah.
right? And we're going to allow him to do this, whatever he was going to do over 10 years, without having to worry about the budget, because we're going to see if we can promote the product.
Right.
So instead of waiting 10 years to get to point X, he may be able to do it in 2 years, and we show you what he's doing each time. The build on this engine will be well worth watching,
Yeah.
because it's a budget build. It's using nitrous as the
And he wants to outrun Casper, but I can't let that
no,
happen.
we can't let that happen, right?
But anyway.
But we got to make it a good race.
Oh, he'll give me a hand. Well, like I said before, if he beats me with our stuff. So
Yeah, but we
it
can't
doesn't-
lose
you
on
can't
it.
really lose. But let's see what else here.
BBF. For the
Oh,
Win 460 and such are good engines.
yeah, the big block Ford is a good engine. And if you go talk to Darren Morgan, you will find that he will tell you that the pro stock engines that are out there are pretty much like a derivative of that engine, more so than the big block Chevy. But anyways, that's another story. Mission Impossible. We've already talked about that and
Yep.
covered it.
Yep.
So you'll have to go back and look.
Here's the biggest problem we've had with that, really. It's down to me, isn't it?
No.
Well, it is. Look how many times I've had to take time off.
Well, I understand
What
that.
with operations and things like this, right? And people, my pension won't support this channel.
Yeah.
I've got to work to make the money to do this stuff. So if I'm ill, the first thing I do when I get back to work is I've got to make money.
That's right.
And
Let's
that
see
gets
here.
increasingly difficult as I get older, because unlike my racetrack performances, I get slower as time goes by.
John, why are you biting your tongue
Where do you say that?
down there? Not sure, says Darren Morgan, says sharp valve seat angles are better. They are to a certain degree, depending on what you're doing.
Where's that? Where does it?
Right here.
Not sure. Darren Morgan says sharp valve seats are better. Well, yes and no. Right?
It depends.
It's not that plain. Now, let me tell you something.
You don't want to put that in your street driver.
Well, here's the thing. The reason Darren likes sharp edge seats is he's now got so much time in seat development that to just give it up willy-nilly is not a good idea. Is he producing heads at work? Hell yes.
Yes.
The guy, let me
He's
tell
brilliant.
you, I know Darren. There isn't a cylinder head problem out there that he's going to let beat him. He's just going to live long enough to beat it, right? Darren is one of my, he is an example of, if you try hard enough, you can get to the top of the ladder, the top of the tree, the top of the mountain. And Darren has got, I remember the days when he first started. He had nothing right. Now look where he is now. And you know, that is sheer determination.
Yep.
Sheer, there's a word on them. Guys, since I've had my brain operation, I cannot get some words out. It's like I run into a brick wall, right? But no, now here's the thing. Darren has done lots of experiments I've never done. I have done lots that Darren has never done. One of the experiments I did was to find out how fuel atomized coming by the seat at the pressures and mixtures and temperatures involved in the engine. So what it is it's a totally, how should I say, representative
Of what's actually
happening.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on a flow bench, because it had to be a flow bench because I had to push air through at the speeds and temperatures, etc. But here's the thing. In my cylinder head book, I have got the picture of the fuel flow coming by the valve on a big block Chevy with a radius seat. That is radius into the seat and radius out. Or radius into the seat, then a top cut and out. So the approach to it is always a radius. Right up to the seat, it blends virtually tangential. Not quite, but virtually tangential. So there's no sharp edge at the beginning and a minimal sharp edge coming out. Let me tell you something. The fuel is a fog, right? It only turns back into liquid flow when it hits the cylinder wall and you can see it running down the cylinder. The problem is not the valve seat. The problem is getting the droplets down to a small enough size to start with. So, and a big block Chevy is not a good engine for getting good fuel quality. So, Darren, you can get totally atomized fuel with a radius seat.
So we also have another super chat here from Sean O'Brien, $2 sent you. Could you talk PCV to catch can to exhaust?
Can we talk now? No.
I'm trying to understand the question.
Yeah, not to.
I mean, because
are you wanting to know how to put the PVC into the catch can, right? And then well, here's the thing. First off, is this a street motor? If it is, then I advise you not to do it unless you know how much suction your exhaust can deliver. If you have got a restrictive muffler system,
it's going to build back
it's
pressure.
going to blow it the other way.
Yes.
If you don't get all fittings at the right angle and things like this, it's going to blow it the other way. Oh, and here's the thing. If you get, and I hate to do this, right? If you get the quick valve manufacturer,
Fear? What are you talking about?
company that makes valves and pistons and rods and that.
Molly? What?
I'm going to get to it. The company that makes lots of stuff, right? And they make it might be.
Are they near here?
No, they're up in Ohio.
I don't know.
Well, anyway, they sell lots of parts, right? That's where they made their business. Selling all those Manly. No, I'm talking about
Molly.
No.
Molly.
It might be. No,
I don't know.
It might be
Either.
Manly. It might be Manly. Right. Here's the situation. The way they tell you to put the exhaust pipe, your extraction pipe, into the exhaust is wrong.
You're talking about Moroso.
Moroso. That's it,
Yeah.
guys. Not Manly. It's Moroso. It's wrong. You need that exhaust to be impinged on the long side. So that here's the exhaust coming in.
Yeah.
And there's the pipe. Here's the hole this side here. So the exhaust comes by and it creates a depression behind it. If you turn it so that it goes in like this with the hole cut like that,
You're going to have issues.
it pretty much won't work. I mean, it might slightly, but not very good. Put it in the other way and it will increase your suction on that pipe enormously. Point. Now, are you going to use it on the road? You better have an exhaust system which is really up to the flow required.
Very low restriction.
Yeah. I can actually tell you what that number should be. And I'm thinking that if you've got any more than a half an inch of mercury restriction, back pressure in the exhaust, you're out of luck.
Yeah. I can tell you that I put it on Mixed Up Boss. I need to do a video on this because on the street with running closed exhaust, I cannot run those tubes because it will pressurize the crankcase. But at the track, when I uncap the exhaust, it will work.
Fine.
It'll work fine. So,
now, if you're doing that, you don't need to go through. You can go through the PVC valve because you don't want it to backflow.
yeah.
Right. So what will happen is the exhaust crankcase pressure will be fed into the PVC valve. The PVC valve will then go to the extractor, because that's got the non-return valve.
Yeah, it's got the check
The manly
valve.
one's got the check valve in it. So here's the deal. Unless you know what you're doing, do not use it on a street motor.
No.
Now, I've used it on a street motor because one of the things I do is I make sure that the muffler I've got flows.
Yeah.
And it has to flow 2.3 CFM for every open header horsepower the engine makes. If it doesn't, don't do it. If you've got a muffler that flows 2.3, then the power loss due to any back pressure is 2/3 to 3/5 of about nothing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Your 500 horsepower engine might drop to 499. Might.
So it is coming up on 9 o'clock.
It is.
It's quick.
Yeah.
Of course, we spent the first 30 minutes trying to get this thing straightened out.
We'll call it a day at 9:30, right?
Okay, 9:30.
Right. What have we got here? BAM Sports Collectibles. Yes. Is
State of art.
if the of the art.
I think he's
Can't
talking
wait
about Steve
for a
Morris.
sick week.
Brian at Block says received a turbo housing where the entry blow was almost straight into the wall. Had to make 290-degree go into the scroller terminal. Yeah, that's
Where
that's
are
crazy.
you reading that?
Right here.
Oh,
right
right.
here. Sorry, y'all. We're doing this on my laptop, by the way, for the people who came in later. Not sure says give DV a stiff drink, give you a rum and coke.
oh, that point here, right? You guys,
Yeah,
I'm
Charlie
sure
got
out
it.
of all of the ones out there, the audience we've got at the moment is pretty big. Actually, we're doing better than my good friend Richard does, aren't we?
Yeah.
Right, which is amazing. Maybe telling everyone on our
Well, he does
mailing
lives
list.
all the time, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. And his lives gather an audience after he's done it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're where he is yet. I
No.
think what happens is he gets about 100, 120 people whilst he's live. But when he signs off, they're
Bunch of
still
people
going
go
in and
They'll go back
looking at-
and
yeah.
watch it. Yeah.
Right now, let me tell you something about Richard here. God, he's a workaholic. Right.
Yeah.
I secretly think he doesn't go to bed at night.
Did you see the video that he just did where he put the carburetor on the N90 supercharger going into the high ram on the LS?
I think I saw the lead photo. Of
Yeah, it was crazy. I watched it. It was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
He does some.
I mean, that's just
he
that's
does
how
some
you
weird
learn.
shit. But the point is, I don't really recall ever having seen a video he's done that wasn't interesting. So hey, Richard, you carry on. The Holdener underline on interest is well underlined, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm going to try and talk him into getting onto my program because, he'll get more viewers.
Yeah. Let's see here.
Maybe I called Ron. Where was it?
Right here.
I called Ron Iskandarian a few years back and chatted with about camshaft for Max Performance Street Rod Race. And I asked him, why don't EFI LS guys use tech massive overlap, etc.? Ron shouted. What did he shout?
Yeah. Here's the thing about, unless you find out what a given engine combination actually likes, you can't sit there and just willy-nilly say
Yeah,
this is what you need. It's something that you have
Yeah,
to.
do you want your camshaft guessed or do you want it calculated?
Right.
You know,
And
let me tell you something about guesswork.
It'll get you an
It's an
outhouse.
art, and most people do not have it.
Yeah.
Right? Really, they don't.
Do you think
I
that
am
a
one
cam
of the
company?
fortunate people that does have good guesswork. That's why I'm king of the late breaker when I'm on a racetrack. I can guess exactly when to put the brake on, and a foot later I'd have an accident.
Do you think that a cam company dyno test every single profile that they do for every engine family? Do you really think that? The answer to that is no. And you notice that profiles are always the same regardless of the engine family.
Here, B&R Racing, Ron Iskandarian said because they can't EFI tune to a real race cam. Now, that's a problem with the EFI, right? You are using a cam which is not what's required to satisfy the needs of an inadequate fuel injection system.
Get a better fuel injection system.
If you had got the ultimate fuel delivery that would do whatever you wanted, that camshaft is going to be indifferent to whether it's delivered by EFI or delivered by a carburetor. Indifferent. Did I make a point there?
Yeah. First responder garage.
Greg, how am I doing so far? Let's see what Charlie had to say. DB did a race engine challenge engine 421 cubes 705. I ported the intake manifold.
Yep.
Look, Charlie, let me make it clear to the viewers here. Charlie does a lot of work for me, right? Let me tell you where Charlie comes in. He's damn good at doing cylinders, right? Here's what happens. If I can't get to a cylinder head because arthritis, whatever, I send it down to Charlie and he finishes it off.
Charlie's really good at what he does.
Yes, he is. Also, Charlie he's always looking for the next step, right? He's a good research guy, isn't he? And he focuses on what he's doing, and he keeps on seeing if he can go one step further, right? So if you go to Charlie to get a head done, the head that he may have been doing last year may not be much like the one he's doing this year. Why? He's probably gone through, every time he does a set of heads, it's a new iteration. Here's where I got to before. Now, can I do better? Now, Charlie takes up the slack for me in two areas. One, he's a very capable research guy. And two, he's a very capable head porter. The two of them are different, by the way. Right? So he scores in both ways. And he's got a great family. Yeah. What's that got to do with anything? No, it's serious. Yeah. Right? His wife puts up with all of his BS.
Well, my wife puts up with all of mine.
Yeah.
So Steve sent you $50. Says, love your channel, David. You and Andy together are great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Steve,
we really appreciate that.
Donations like that they make our life for our R&D projects that much easier.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you very much.
You know, one thing that you'll find with Fords, I've seen something on here about swirl.
Oh, Nate Dalton there, Charlie's recent work. Charlie always does top notch.
Oh yeah.
Right.
He will chase a rabbit to the end of the hole.
Yep.
That's the thing about Charlie. Talking about swirl, you know, that's one thing I hate about Fords.
What?
Like those cylinder heads, a typical Ford does not have any swirl compared to a small block Chevy.
9 out of 10 times you're right.
Yeah.
And here's something, I did some research on this, and I called up the guy that designed this particular Ford head, and I said, you know, yours is one of the few that's got swirl. And his answer was, really? That's accidental.
Yeah.
That's almost a quote.
So not sure. Let me, I'm going to put something out there. Not sure says 27 cuts. Let me tell you something. When you are developing a cylinder head and you see people on YouTube that just put one video out there and say, this is it. They don't tell you the amount of time and effort it took to get to the finished product. It takes doing. Now, Charlie will actually show you every step of the way that he's going through. And that's something that is very much missed in this YouTube thing, because people do not put that out there, because it is a lot of work going back and forth, grinding, flowing, grinding, flowing.
Yeah. I've got one here. My late, very good friend, Roger Helgeson, right? Very good friend. He said his best customers were people who tried porting their own heads and found out the hard way how much hard work it is to do a proper job. That was his best customers. He said 2 out of 3 cylinder head jobs he gets in, his client started them and said, "Ah, screw this, I'll get Roger to do it."
Yeah,
Right. It is a lot of hard work.
it is.
It takes tenacity and the application or the dispensation of a lot of grinding.
Yeah,
doesn't
well, it's one thing if you're grinding a cylinder head that you can get to the finished product so much quicker. But if you're getting outside of your element and you're grinding on a set of cylinder heads that you've never done before, then it's going to take you a while. Racer D, I'm going to let you take this one. Tumble is better than swirl any day.
No, it isn't. Next question.
Yeah, no, it isn't.
Do you realize that tumble gets quenched as the compression goes up? By the time you get to 10.5 to 11 to 1, any tumble that was in the chamber
Gone.
has been quenched. If it's swirl, and most chambers are smaller than the bore, the conservation of angular momentum as that piston comes up means the swirl increases in velocity. Now then, we don't want swirl to be quenched. We want to make the most of it. Tumble is not better, right? My polyquad stuff, we tend to ignore the tumble other than to use it to offset the swirl so that it's not rotating about the spark plug. If it rotated about the spark plug, which is the middle of the cylinder head, worst place to put it, there's no mixture velocity at the plug.
You know,
it's like at the North Pole. You're rotating in degrees, but you're not moving across any point in space around the axis. You're standing still. At the equator, you're going about 1,053 miles an hour, right? People who, you see it all the time. You know, the Earth can't rotate. If it did, I'd feel it. It's rotating about over 1,000 miles an hour. No, it isn't. It's rotating once a day, 360 degrees. Now, this business about, well, I don't feel the Earth moving. You know, flying at 61,000 feet in Concorde, you could stand a pencil on the table on the end. You didn't know you were moving. You could look out the window and see you're going along at nearly 1,500 miles an hour, i.e. Mach 2.2. And the Concorde only weighs what? A couple of hundred tons. The Earth weighs trillions of tons. It's not going to move suddenly. The sheer mass of the globe is going to totally damp any sense of movement. So this business about the Earth's not rotating, I can't. It's supposed to be rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. No, I can't feel it. I can't feel it moving through space. Do your homework, right? One of the things that really aggravates me is people who will criticize other people and not get their facts right. In fact, on the Ford forum, I'm ashamed to say this, they do have trolls on the Ford 6G forum.
Oh, yeah.
They do. They have a lot of great guys, but unfortunately, there's just a small percentage that are trolls. One of the things with trolls is they don't do their homework. They will make statements out and then wheedle their way around them to justify them, right? You got to think that they're pretty inventive. They're a load of bullshit, but it's pretty inventive. But anyway, before you make a criticism of anything, confirm your facts.
So swirl is a very in-depth subject.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I will touch on is if you're taking energy to create swirl, what is that going to do to your flow numbers as you see as on the bench? The energy has to come from somewhere. Because you got to remember the energy is neither created nor destroyed, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah. Conservation of energy.
Yeah, conservation of energy. And so therefore your port speed, your CFM is actually going to go down with more swirl.
Yeah. That said, let me point this out. Andy brought the subject up a little while ago. Ford heads are very renowned for very poor swirl. That's because the port comes in at precisely the wrong angle. If the port's coming in like this into the cylinder wall, if they tipped it like this, like a Chevrolet, you get swirl simply because of the direction the port's going in. Now, here's the good thing. That is a time when the production of swirl does not impede the flow. Why? Because the swirl is produced by angling the port, which also means that the air doesn't run smack into a solid cylinder wall. It tends to get turned.
You remember that NASCAR driver that went around the outside edge to make the turn and passed about 6 cars?
Oh, yeah.
That's what you're doing with swirl as
it
hit the cylinder wall.
Dale Earnhardt, right?
No, this was a few years ago at Martinsville.
Right.
I can't remember who did it.
But now what I'm going to add something to that. Yeah. Oh, yes. Question of swirl often cropped up, especially with cup car guys. They'd say, well, if you get too much swirl, the power drops. Right? So you mustn't have too much swirl. Why did the power drop? Before they make, when you see a result on a dyno, the idea is you don't just accept that result face value without putting a reason on it, because the reason that whatever it is occurs may or may not be either used in your favor or countered.
Right.
Most cup cars lost power because they centrifuged the fuel onto the walls, which tells me the carburetor was delivering fuel droplets which were too big.
Right. The fuel wasn't atomized properly.
Yeah. Yep. And it was now if the
or you could have too fast of airspeed through the port and the fuel would separate. There's a whole
too fast airspeed means the port's too small.
Right.
Right. But anyway, and here's the other thing. People put too much emphasis on porting by numbers.
Right.
I know Darren Morgan has put out a lot of things porting by numbers. But let me clarify this, and I think Darren would do exactly the same thing if he realized that it's semi-misinterpreted. And that is, if you use his porting by numbers technique, what it does is like walking into a room and it's dark. And you turn a switch on and a 10-watt bulb lights up. Now then, you've gone from not knowing where the hell you are to being able to roughly see where you are. Now, when you get on a flow bench and you develop the stuff to the extent that you've used these numbers to get you in the ballpark, you will find that that's like switching on a 100-watt bulb. You see much better. Darren is supplying what is a good start, or most occasions is supplying what is a good starting point from what he has been able to figure out and develop over the last, God, it must be getting on for 35 years now. Like, you know, I watched him on YouTube the other day. He's going great. When I first knew him, he was a sprightly lad of, I don't know, he looked like he was maybe 18 at the most. I don't know if he was, he might have been older. But he's one of these guys who didn't look his age to start with.
See, this is another thing. Racer D is saying Warren Johnson has not used his flow bench in years. He knows what works.
Well, he does, but he may not know what works to the ultimate.
Yeah, right? But he keeps progressing on the same foundation that he's working on. You see what I'm saying? That's different.
Yeah. Let me give him an example here, right? Those of you who've worked on Porsche heads will realize that the Porsche cylinder head intake port and exhaust port are basically aimed straight at the back of the valve. And you may look at it and say, well, what can you do to that? All you can do is make it bigger. No. Porsche have no idea about optimum ports. They do that because they said, well, we can't get much better. It's just a straight curve into. Yes, you can. If you used a flow bench and had some imagination, the typical Porsche head as a factory produced a race head compared with what we would produce here could be as much as 50 horsepower. But our
That's pretty
Porsche doesn't look
substantial.
like anything like theirs. The first thing we do is we probably put a couple of ounces of welding material in the port where they've screwed up. They have not developed the best port, right? Porsche engine design is always a couple of years behind where it could be if they had some engineers who were more inclined to reach out further. Now, what they're doing is to say, well, we've got this far, we need to make it reliable. So I'm not criticizing them for inadequacy. I'm criticizing them in as much as it doesn't cost any more to cast the right shape port than it does the wrong one.
shape.
You just have to have the initiative to be able to ask the question, is this port the optimum? And I don't care how many hours Warren Johnson spent on the flow bench and not on it. He may know what works. I'm not arguing that. The guy is pretty damn good at what he does. He may not have the ultimate. No, in fact, I know he doesn't, right? And to get the ultimate, he'd still be on the flow bench now, right?
Yeah. John Wilburn says, Andy wasn't sporting a gray beard either when he met me. No, all of this wasn't gray. So we're coming up on the 2-hour mark.
Yep.
We've got like 3-4 minutes. Cobalt 512, another $20.
Yep.
I'll be watching closely for that turbo porting video. Hopefully this gets you close to
I'm
E-Canal
working-
exhaust
yeah.
valve. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I'm working on it now. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I want you all. Okay, let's have the closing thing here.
Yeah.
Right. We know that putting more boost in makes more horsepower. We know that putting the compression ratio up makes more horsepower. Well, I should say torque, actually.
Yeah.
Right. Now, is it best to try and put the compression ratio up as high as you can and then put the most boost in? Or is it better to put the most boost in and then find how high you can put the compression? Which is best out of those two, or is there even another third alternative? I would like to see some of you respond to that.
Yeah.
Right. On, let's say, either one of Andy's, which one would you like him to respond on?
It doesn't matter.
Right. Or on one of my EcoBoost videos.
Put it on your channel.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Either if you want to address Andy or myself on the EcoBoost about boost, I'd say put it on the latest channel. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Now, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, reactions. I was going to do one on reactions for my race car driver one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we'll close with this. One of the things that I found out quite by accident, I managed to establish what my reaction time was to realize something had happened up here. No movements of hands or anything. This is my raw reaction time from going from one brain cell to another, right? This is the absolute reaction time without any muscle movement whatsoever. How did I do it? That's going to be a good story.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed the live show tonight. It was fun, like always, getting here with David, chatting it up.
And all this list here.
Thank you for
Thank
you.
Tells you what a great audience we have, right?
Yeah, and thank you for all the super chat money, all of the subscriptions to both of our channels. I pretty much apply what he takes, and I put it in layman's terms for the average guy, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
One last thing on this. When Andy does a video, he picks up the microphone, does it, puts it down, puts it out. I cannot believe this guy's been round here at 4 o'clock, shot a video, and I look on YouTube, it's 7:30. It's already been up an hour, right? I am working. Sometimes I would spend as much as 2 weeks doing one video. Why? Because I can only go so far.
Yeah.
Before I cannot find the words to address what I'm doing, or I start to steer off course.
No, I am not a pro, John. Far from it. So I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Now, guys, we're going to try and do this every 2 weeks to start with.
Yeah,
right?
every 2 weeks.
Now, question. Is
I've got to get this whole computer
yeah,
thing straightened out.
we got a few things to get going here.
Yeah.
But anyway, think about what it is.
We'll let you drive the topics.
Yeah.
And then we're going to
That's
have a
good
bunch.
way of putting it.
And
yeah.
then we're going to have a lot of really cool guests on the show. I can't wait for that.
Yes,
So-
we are. I'm going to have my good friend Don Lucito. We're going to get Tom from 3B Performance.
Yeah.
He's our pro stock guy, by the way.
Yeah.
We are going to get
Lake Speed Jr. We need to get him.
We need to get Lake Speed Jr. Yeah. I am going to tackle Greg Anderson here, right? I don't know Greg. I've seen what goes on his car
My channel.
because I worked at the same shop that did his heads, right? But people like that. Oh, fingers crossed. Let us wish Ed Iskandarian good health. He's coming up for 100.
I think he's already passed it.
He might have done. Right?
Yeah.
I've lost track of time, right? Okay, guys.
All right.
Thank
Take
you very
care.
much. Your questions have been great. They have been inspirational.
Yeah,
haven't
they're awesome.
they? Right. So you guys have made the program. Without you making these comments, we wouldn't have a lot to
Yep.
say, would we?
No.
Not was pertinent to what they wanted.
Yeah. All right. Y'all take care.